episode of Linux Action Show is brought to you by GoDaddy.com.
And by Ting.com. Head over to last.ting.com and save $25 off your first device.
Welcome to Linux Action Show, Season 31, Episode 5. My name is Chris.
My name is Monkey Matt.
Hey, Monkey Matt. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, should I tell folks about the big show today? What do you think?
Yeah,
okay.
let's do it.
So coming up, if you haven't guessed already, if you're maybe on the audio version, the Monkey Suit Bet came due this week, and we are going to pay up. This is 1 year since the big Mir, I guess you might say at the time, debacle was announced, and things have changed.
A little bit.
So we're going to bring on Kevin Gunn from Canonical. He's the engineering manager for Display Server and Unity UI. So this is the guy to ask questions about Mir. And I'll chat with him about closed source drivers and how they'll work with Mir, what the future holds for Mir, how they could potentially integrate with Wayland in the future, and how devices like the Oculus Rift might work with Mir, and all kinds of stuff. So we'll have a chat with him in the second half of the show. Of course, coming up is also the news. We're going to talk about the big news from GDC for Linux. There's several stories. GDC just wrapped up. That's the... Hey, Monkey. That's the Game Developers Conference.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, GDC. And there was a lot of Linux stuff that came out, and it's pretty big. So we're going to cover that. Plus, there's a rumored Ubuntu tablet, and one of the guys running for an election in Debian wants to propose a PPA system.
What?
Yeah, so we'll have thoughts about that. We'll talk about that. And then in the feedback segment, we've got some awesome swag and a question we're going to toss to you guys. Should we drop the season format on the Linux Action Show? The chat room is voting right now. They've joined us live. But first, Matt, it is our picks.
Oh, yes.
And we'll start with the Runs Linux. This is something that's close to my heart because I not only have worked in the security field, not only am I a Linux advocate, but I've also worked at a bank where we had an ATM network that I helped secure. So I happen to have a little insider on information on this story. So India's banks are switching to Linux rather than extending Windows XP support. So that is our Runs Linux pick this week, Matt. India's ATMs will soon be running Linux now. Everybody knows Windows XP is ending end-of-life support on April 8th, which is like days away right now.
Right. I mean, it's time to do it. Yeah.
And the thing is, the vast majority of bank ATMs around the world currently run on Windows XP. Did you know that?
That is ridiculous. I mean, it's like, how old is this? I mean, in banana years, that's just ridiculous. I mean, there's no way.
Speaking of banana years, before we go on, Matt, a congratulatory banana for you right there. That's just for you. If you're a good monkey, you can eat that at the end of the show, okay?
Ooh.
You enjoy that. All right, so this is something that I have been thinking about since I worked at the bank, because I saw us deploy these ATMs that run Windows XP, and here's how the security on these machines work. In some cases, especially on the cheaper ATMs or like the smaller community bank ATMs, they are metal boxes with a PC in there, and then the security is they're on an isolated network that's connected to the bank. They're not on the general internet, and they have a USB dongle in the back. So if you remove the USB dongle, they don't work, and if the only way to connect to them is if you breach the bank's network. But we all know, in the light of like we've had these massive Target breaches and things like that, getting into the network is not that hard. The Target network was breached through their HVAC vendor. They had an HVAC vendor who had a remote connection to manage all of the Target air conditioners throughout the country, and the attackers got in through that HVAC's backdoor access. And so, obviously, you have ATMs that are managed by vendors that could also have backdoor access.
That's just ridiculous. I mean, it's too easily accessible, and they need to address this.
India has around 115,000 ATMs across the country that will be switching over to BOS Linux, Bharat Linux Operating System Solutions. This is after coming from a big recommendation from the government financial services and also one of the big financial banks in India. A recent advisory said to all its government departments to move to open source and free software on the BOS Linux system. As a key benefit, it will ultimately be a huge savings to the entire government. They said, consider installing BOS Linux as one of the mandatory operating systems, said the order issued by the TN Information Technology Department. The huge investment could cost involved purchasing in closed source software. We would save money in purchasing things such as Windows XP, and maybe that cost may be avoided, which in turn translates to huge savings for the government, the order stated. And so...
savings are good.
Diebold, one of the major ATM manufacturers here in the United States, their response to all of this was, well, I mean, look, you can keep banks... You don't got to go off XP. Just get a firewall. Just get a firewall. Yeah.
How? I mean, okay.
So the Reserve Bank of India highlighted
business.
the issue on Tuesday of this week, saying the bank operations may be hit once the XP gets phased out, and so they're recommending everybody switch over to Boss Linux.
Well, I think they got the right approach. Obviously, going to Linux is just a better long-term, long-tail solution.
It's scary to even think that today that my financial transactions are happening on a Windows XP computer.
Right.
And I'll tell you exactly. Again, I know why this happened, because these same people forced us to run IIS and Microsoft SQL because they knew how to develop in Visual Studio. They're developers. They come from an era before the web, when Internet Explorer was dominant, and this is how they see how development is done. And so the whole thing came with all these Windows dependencies. You know, we actually had 2 IIS servers and a SQL server just so we could look up people's balances.
Oh my God!
And they had to be, because of the way the application worked, they had to be in an Active Directory. So we had to have them segmented, but yet in the same domain, and we had to manage an entire separate Active Directory just for these systems.
That's
and
ridiculous.
The security is super weak. Vendors have remote access, and they're all designed like this because they're turnkey solutions that vendors deploy, so then they have to manage them. And the thing is, the banks pay them tons of money and pay for those connections.
So are these guys unwilling to learn something, say, I don't know, a little more modern? I mean, or, maybe hire on some new people? I don't, I just don't understand that wait till it breaks and then, it's, PR control after that.
I think it's all just cost savings.
Jeez.
I know. Speaking of cost savings, let's talk about practical ways you can save money. So I called up my girl last night, not my wife. No, my wife and I didn't talk about this. I just surprised her this morning. But I said, Danica, tomorrow I'm thinking about wearing a man in the yellow hat suit on the Linux Action Show.
And how'd that go?
Well, I said, Danica, I got to warn you, my hat is floppy. It is not firm. And so I said, I'm embarrassed to show my wife.
Boy.
I'm embarrassed to go on the show. What should I do? And she said, what if I could give you something? What if I could pass something on to you that would give you the motivation to go out in front of the camera and talk to the people? And I said, Danica, what could you do? And I'm thinking dirty pictures, right? But no. No, that was not it. Matt, how dare you? No, that's right. This week's sponsor is GoDaddy.com, and the 295.com is back. Danica is hooking us up. Just use the promo code 295show. She said, Chris, if I give this to you, if I give this 295 show to you, will you pass it on to the people and go out there and do the show? And I said, yes, Danica. I said, I will go out there. So go over to GoDaddy.com, check their site. There are some limitations, but you can get a .com for $2.95. And additional .coms, just $10 a year after that. Still a great deal, still a great value. And when you can get a .com for $2.95, this is when I'm like, this changes everything.
I mean, like monkey.sexy. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities.
I don't think that's a .com.
That's not a .com.
No,
but you could do some monkey something .com.
You totally could. But like when it's a .com for $2.95, I'm buying them for everything. If I just need a URL, like to forward. So we have the Linux Action Show or LinuxAfterparty.com, which is going to be the after party for Linux Fest Northwest. It was this crazy long Google event URL, and I'm like, no
one's going to remember that.
No,
right?
LinuxAfterparty.com. That's easy. And the thing is, GoDaddy makes it super, super convenient to go in there and forward that DNS. You just click a few things in that dashboard. Bob's your uncle. It's forwarding. You can have it permanently or just temporarily redirect. Takes effect in just minutes, depending on where you're at. And now, when you can get a .com for $2.95, use the promo code SHOW 290 or 295 SHOW 295 SHOW. Put the price first. 295 SHOW when you check out. Over at GoDaddy.com. 295 show will get you a $2.95.com.
I mean, at that price, it's foolish not to.
SMBFLA in the chat room points out we could have gotten monkeyactionshow.com. Is that available?
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. You know,
we could permalink
.com.
Monkey Action. We could permalink that to this URL. So I'm going to search right now, and I'm going to get that if it is available. See, it's already taken.
Oh my goodness! Well, hopefully one of our audience members got it.
We should get one. We should get one like that, and then we can permalink it to this episode.
Maybe do the monkey action.
SMB. Okay, there you go. Yeah. There you go. SMB in Florida just got it for us.
See, there we go.
Yeah,
awesome.
There you go. So use the promo code 295 show and SMB in FLA if you want to. You can go into your DNS management dashboard when the episode is posted and just click DNS forwarder and just drop the URL to this episode in that forwarder, and then from that point on, people can just go to monkeyactionshow.com to watch this episode.
How awesome is that?
That's a great use of a 295.com.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I definitely think so.
Okay, I've got a pick this week, and I feel like I'm going to get flamed for it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You think so? Okay.
I think so because I didn't really care a lot about the security. I did look into it, and I'm going to talk about it. And it's a little hard for me to demo because it shows phone numbers and stuff.
Ooh, makes it a little spotty.
It's a Skype killer. You guys have probably heard it. I think we've even mentioned it in passing on the show. It's called Viber, Viber.
Yes.
And it aims to be probably the best way to say is to totally replace Skype. And it's a messaging platform that does text messages, picture messages, video messages, voice messages, and call audio and video calling.
Nice.
What I like about it, so I'll give you my scenario here.
Okay.
So Rikai's working with us now, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff happening with the studio. You know, appointments are being made, things need to be done. And I didn't want all of us to be texting each other constantly.
Oh, right. It's just a nightmare.
And I just don't like text messaging, and it gets, you know, like, it's excessive, and there's so many free messaging platforms out there. But at the same time, I'm one of those guys where I'm at my desk all the time.
Yes.
And if I want to be able to message on my phone or from my desktop, right? I don't,
Sure.
and I want them to sync too. That's the other kind of important thing about it.
Right.
So this is where Viber comes in, because Viber you first have to sign up on the mobile device, because it's very focused on mobile. You even need a mobile phone number.
Okay.
And that's what it ties to.
Reasonable.
And then it comes in here, and I'll show you, Matt, I'll show you the UI just so you can kind of get an idea of it.
Okay.
This is Viber here, and you can see it has pictures inline. And I'll show some screenshots too.
Oh, yeah.
Pictures inline, and it does it has a stickers system, which is actually kind of cool. You can send replies just with stickers. So, like, I'll just tap that, and I can send a kiss to Angela.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And see, that's a feature I think my wife would find fun.
And what's neat is, like, when she sends me a message, like, so say I have this up on my nav,
Right.
and I'm doing the Waze thing.
Yeah.
If she sends me a message while I'm driving, it comes up, it shows me a preview of the message in a screen overlay over Waze or whatever the application is, and then I can just, it gives me like 3 or 4 stickers I can just tap and immediately send a response. So when I'm driving, I can just, okay, got it, I'll be right there.
So much better than like the voice activated misunderstanding crap, to where you know it's being sent properly. You just bam, done, monkey time. You know,
Right, exactly. You get in, you get out, you get your bananas.
That's right.
So here is here's the desktop UI. I've kind of tried to grab this and then blur out where any phone numbers are.
Yeah,
but this is the Linux client, and you can see here the stickers all work in there. Right now under Linux, I can't get the calling to work. I don't know why that is. But what's really neat about it, and I don't know so I'll show you, because the other thing that's really great is sometimes when you're on the go, you just want to send a voice message. This has a push-to-talk system, kind of like a walkie-talkie.
Perfect.
It's not exactly like a walkie-talkie in the sense that when I push this, it actually begins to transmit to Angela immediately.
Oh, really?
But it doesn't play on her end until she pushes play. So it'll notify her immediately that I'm recording her a voice message. It'll show up in her chat window, and then she can press play and listen in real time as I record it. And I can say, like, I'll be like, hey, Ange, I'm just here recording the Linux Action Show demonstrating Viber right now. And then I send that, and it says, and I can see a deliver status, and I see the double check means that she got it. And then that's a 4-second clip that she can just play out when she wants. She can send me back any kind of response. I can also get the responses on the desktop. The voice clips don't work necessarily on the desktop. But here's another thing that's really neat, is you can also send your location to somebody. So I can go in here to Viber, and I can say, send Angela my current location. So instead of saying, hey, we're right here, I can just click this button.
Oh, dude,
and now I just sent her a little map. And if she clicks that, it opens up in Google Maps on her phone. And she just sent me back a thumbs up that she got it.
I mean, how awesome it'd be like, I've arrived at such and such, don't know the address, don't really feel like trying to figure out GPS coordinates.
Right.
Bam, done, boom.
Well, and the other thing is, like, when she's on the way and she's going to need help unloading the kids and the groceries or whatever it might be, she can just send me that, like, when she's close, and I can look at the map and go, oh, well, she's about 5 minutes away.
Right.
Which is nice. Or, like, when I'm heading over to the studio to pick up Rikai, I can just send him a ping with my location. He knows I'm getting close. And it works in group as well. So we have a studio project chat where Rikai, Angela, and I are all in there, and everything that gets sent in there goes to all of us. And again, all of this is sent in real time to the desktop client as well. There's Mac, Windows, and Linux versions of the desktop client, and they all synchronize together. You can only have it on one mobile device. So if you've got multiple mobile devices, you have to pick one and stick with it. And so...
Dumb question. Can you pay more to get more mobile devices?
So
I would be willing.
No,
to do
that you can't, because they tie it to your phone ID. But what you can pay for is you can do Viber out calls. So Viber to Viber calls are free, kind of like Skype.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you want to use Viber to call out, that costs some money, and and it's like an in-app purchase.
Sure.
So a couple of things I just wanted to mention about Viber, because again, I didn't dig too deep into like how it is secured, because that's not a big concern for this particular use case. I would like to replace this with something that was open source, something that had clearly documented encryption, and something that's, and there are things out there like TextSecure that do that part.
Sure.
The part that they don't do is multi-device presence and desktop synchronization. And I need a Mac client, and I need a Linux client, and I need multiple device clients. So that's where Viber is really strong. Plus, everything is supported across all of those: pictures, video, voice messages. I can't find a lot about Viber's privacy policy. I did link; they have a pretty plain English privacy policy. It just doesn't go very deep.
Sure.
The founder was interviewed last year, by The Guardian. And he said Viber's policy is that it receives a proper subpoena. It will provide records of who made and received calls and when, but no content of those conversations will be shared. He said that Viber does not have the capability to listen to conversations.
Yes.
Messages are stored for 2 weeks or until they are opened by the recipient, whichever is shorter.
Well, at least their policy is clear.
And he said around 80% are deleted within a second off their servers.
Oh, that's that's pretty reasonable. That makes sense because it frees up space for them.
They were recently just bought by a Japanese firm on February 13th of this year for $900 million. The way what their business model really is with Viber is, it sounds silly, but they have all of these stickers. Okay. And I'll show you.
Remember how popular that was with like email? So I could see that, kind of translating into the next generation.
Exactly. So here, I'll show you the Android screenshots, and they have a good tablet support too if you want to chat from your tablet.
Right.
The stickers thing, the thing that's really nice about it is they have a lot of different ones that convey different messages. And they're kind of showing silly ones in the screenshots, but
that's cool.
You can say a lot with just a sticker, and you don't have to sit there and type it out while you're driving. You just touch something, and it immediately conveys the message, and it's kind of nice.
That I could say that's my number one advantage right there. Is a lot of times, maybe I'm Bluetooth headset and driving, whatever. My wife asked me a question, or I wanted to know she picked something up or whatever. Definitely. I think there's a lot of good use for that.
All right, Matt. So that's Viber. It's available for iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, and Linux. It is closed source. If you know of something that is multi-presence, that is secure, like with really well-documented encryption, and is open source, leave us a comment or send us in feedback over at jupiterbroadcasting.com and click that contact link, or in the subreddit. I'd really like to see that because I'm not married to Viber,
right?
But right now, it sure is solving a need, and it's essentially it's a replacement for Hangouts and Messages,
right?
That's cross-platform.
I think that's really the thing is that it's not so much it's the activity that you're married to, not so
and chat room's pointing out so I could roll an XMPP server, but the thing is I have had really hit and miss support with like video and picture messages, and when you're trying to do stuff like we'll use Viber on the desktop client, I'll use Viber to send a screenshot of what I'm talking about. So last night Rikai was setting something up on the editing machine, and I was like, well, here's just a screenshot of what it looks like, and I just sent it to him through Viber, and he pulls it up on the phone. He's like, oh, okay, there it is.
Well, I wonder if you were to go the whole DIY server approach, could you do something with like Imager or whatever? Like is there an API tie-in somewhere?
Maybe.
You could probably hack something together.
That might be worth looking into. If anybody has an experience with that, I'd like to hear it.
That'd be kind of cool.
All right, so our spotlight this week, it's a little selfish. It has to be. It is the Monkey Suit Bet. And here we were, sitting here on this very show. Matt made a post 1 year ago. He says, if Mir fails within 1 year from now, I'll wear this on the show. And there it is. You linked to the sock puppet Monkey Suit. And I went out, Matt, and I found the clip. I found the bet right here.
Oh, no.
So let's roll back the Wayback Machine and play us from 1 year ago this Sunday talking about the Monkey Suit Bet.
Cool. In the interest of making things interesting, I'm a bit of a betting man, and I probably bit off more than I could chew, but I committed to this, and everybody in the subreddit knows what I'm already going to say. If Wayland overtakes, I think I said a year from now in the subreddit, whatever I said, I bookmarked it all on my calendar, so it's live.
He said, here's the deal. If 1 year from now Mir isn't being used not only by Ubuntu, now this is where you got crazy.
Yeah, I wanted to be ultimately fair to the people that are like, oh, he's going to cheat.
I think you got your hands on some catnip when you wrote this.
Yeah.
Not only Mir, so he wrote, if 1 year from now Mir isn't being used not only by Ubuntu, but also by at least one additional distro not based on Ubuntu.
I wanted to be fair because otherwise I don't want to say, oh, we'll see Ubuntu's doing it. No, I want to be fair to the guy.
Maybe Arch. Arch would count, even though Arch doesn't technically.
Well, Arch doesn't have a default, so I gave them a pass too. Okay. I said that I won't count that in my favor. No,
now here's what
Arch users will understand.
I'm not going to.
I want to say it can't be Arch because Arch should be cheating on my end.
So what are you going to do? What are you going to do if this doesn't happen? If Mir fails to ship an Ubuntu and one other distro, what happens?
I'm going to have to really reevaluate my attire for the segment in the show. I'm going to have to really.
You're going to wear a monkey suit on the show.
Yeah, head and all, folks. It's going to be monkey time, and I'm going to be dressed up like a sock monkey for the show 1 year, according.
If in 1 year it doesn't ship, so we're talking, it needs to be in an Ubuntu release.
Yep. Otherwise, I will be doing the recap in a monkey suit.
Are you sure you don't want to say Arch counts? Are you sure?
No, can't. I made a commitment. No, I committed to the audience that I was going to not cheat. Cheating. If I said Arch, that's cheating because they don't.
Oh, look at you, and you stuck to it, Matt. You stuck to it.
I did.
I got to give you props, man. I got to say, I didn't know.
Stick to my bets.
We didn't know what was going to happen. I think everybody kind of expected maybe more to have shipped by now.
Yeah,
but then
this guy did.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think we both acknowledge it was a massive technical challenge, and it continues to be. And we're going to talk more about it with Kevin in a little bit.
Yes.
It has been a very interesting year. So I want to, after our chat with Kevin in the feedback segment, I kind of want to recap kind of just our thoughts on the whole year since the Mir announcement and where things are at today and all of that kind of stuff. So that'll be towards the end of this week's episode. I can't believe you did it. And I ended up getting sucked into it somehow too.
I know, right?
I was
You're
feeling
like all man in the yellow
I was
hat
feeling
and-
bad for you, Matt. I was feeling bad for you.
I'll tell you what.
All right, Matt.
Okay.
Let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Matt, Ting is mobile that makes sense, and Ting powers my Nexus 5 and Matt's banana. That's right. Matt has a cellular banana on the Ting network.
right.
And what's great about Matt's banana is he only pays for what he uses. And he has no contract and no early termination fee on that banana. And in fact, if he wants to, he can do hotspot or tethering because it's included with his plan for that banana. He just pays a flat $6 per month, and then his banana usage on top of that is what he ends up paying for, plus a little bit of taxes. And you know what I love about Ting is they are, because of this whole system, the no contracts, no early termination fee, helping you relieve your if you have to get out of a contract, they'll give you up to $75 per line that you have to cancel. All of this is so great. And Ting really is changing the mobile industry. They're pressuring the incumbent players, and they've noticed there's some room for improvement in the mobile industry, and they're curious what you think. If you submit a video to Ting, you have a chance to win a brand new Nexus 5 and a $400 Ting credit.
Nice.
Jesse from Ting here, excited to tell you about an awesome YouTube-only contest. Send us a video telling us what you think sucks the most about the mobile industry in America. You could win a brand new Nexus 5 and credit for a year's worth of Ting service. To submit your video, upload it to YouTube and share a link in the comments below. We're really looking forward to see what you come up with. All the details are in the description. Good luck.
All right, so the contest ends March 28th, so you got to hurry up because I'd really like somebody in the last audience to own this. I think that'd be a good little feather in our cap.
I
if
agree.
Somebody in the last audience goes out there. So make a video, post it to YouTube. I'll go to the Ting blog. You can go to ting.com/blog for details, and then you're going to get a free Nexus 5 and $400 of Ting credit, and you can see for free what I've been talking about for Ting for over a year now because it is a great service. I plugged in my old cell contract into the savings calculator. If you go to last.ting.com, last.ting.com is where you go to show them that you heard about this on the show and you appreciate their support, but they also have a savings calculator there. If you go to last.ting.com, you can try that savings calculator. I plugged in my cell phone bill, and in 2 years, I'm going to save $2,300.
Holy cow. I mean, like that's a new TV.
It's an average savings of $98 a month. It's almost $100 a month.
I mean, that's like right now money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is then I'm not in a contract. I own my device outright, and it's a system where they actually their whole thing is making the customer happy. That's all they focus on, and that is so awesome. And it shows like in their no-hold customer service. If you call them at 1-855-TING-FTW anytime between 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern, an actual person answers the phone.
Love that.
And they just solve the problem for you. They get it taken care of. They also have an awesome dashboard. There's tons of reasons to check out Ting. So go to last.ting.com. That'll take $25 off your first device. Or if you already have a device you want to bring, they'll take $25 off your first month of service. And that's just a great deal. Last.ting.com. And a big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show.
Love those guys. Not only did they help me bring over this great phone here, but bringing over my banana was even easier.
I agree.
It was awesome.
It was zero trouble.
Zero trouble.
So why don't we keep on the mobile thread? Mark Shuttleworth hints at Ubuntu tablets to launch this fall, along with those Ubuntu Touch smartphones we've talked about. He was speaking to Steve Costello for MWL TV. Shuttleworth stated, tablets will arrive pretty much simultaneously with phones in Q3. Middle of this year, we'll see both phones and tablets running Ubuntu on the market.
That's kind of cool.
And these will be running Mir.
Yeah.
Missed it by that much.
That's great, guys. I cannot tell you how awesome that. Congratulations, guys. Seriously.
Here's the part I like. Earlier this year, there were rumors floating around that systems. Whoa. Oh, I still have Viber turned on.
Oh, my goodness. I'm hearing.
Angela sent me a message. Oh, she sent me that. Wow, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
That's you coming in the door. That's you coming in the front door. That's too funny.
That's awesome.
I'll pull that up here in a second. So, earlier this year, System 76 was rumored to perhaps rock an Ubuntu tablet in the near future.
Oh, really?
Would you be on board for that?
I would love that.
Yeah, I would totally
Because
be down
honestly,
for that.
the Android tablets, I'm just not there.
Yeah, I think.
But an Ubuntu tablet, I can actually do stuff I want to do on.
Well, here's the other thing I think about an Ubuntu tablet is even if I didn't want to, at the end of the day, rock an Ubuntu tablet,
right?
I might be up for maybe loading a different OS on there because it'd probably be a lot easier. Yeah, there's Matt in in the monkey suit right there. That's nice, Matt. You were owning that when you walked in the door. And then here I am coming into the studio about to do the show with my with my orange juice. Like
the expression.
What's up?
God.
Yeah. I'm sorry for you audio listeners this week. You guys, maybe we'll post these in the subreddit or
we'll
something.
put them up there as an audio edition, perhaps.
Yeah,
Slideshow or something.
So anyways, so we're getting a little distracted. So anyways, imagine System 76 with an Ubuntu Touch tablet. That'd be pretty cool. And I think anytime, even if you don't want to run Ubuntu, getting hardware out there that's capable of running Ubuntu is probably good for all Linux.
So I get to support a vendor I'm really passionate about, and I get to try a new operating system on a tablet. I mean, that's kind of cool,
Yeah,
I like that.
Like Dr. P says in the chat room, I think a System 76 tablet would be pretty incredible.
Yeah, I'd be down for that for sure.
Yeah, and that's just my honest opinion. So one of the big stories, it wasn't actually technically at GDC, I don't think, but it came out during the GDC week. GOG, Good Old Games, has announced, don't duck, they plan to support Linux soon. They've decided the next step for them as a company is to support Linux. They say we're initially going to be launching our Linux support on GOG with the full GOG.com treatment for Ubuntu and Mint. Getting geared up for the big kickoff in the fall with at least 100 Linux games ready for you to play. This is, of course, going to include games that will sell, which already have Linux clients. We'll also be bringing Linux games, a variety of classics that are, for the first time, officially supported and maintained by our storefront. So probably some DOSBox games that, they have a great selection.
Well, I'm pretty excited about this because of the fact that I've always loved them as a company. I always thought they were really awesome, but it was kind of waiting for them to get on board with this. And I think maybe Steam gave them the indication they needed to say, oh, hey, this could work.
Yeah, I think SteamOS changes the calculus a little, but
sure.
My first reaction to this was, well, great. Welcome to the party. I wish you'd done this a year ago because remember last year we got teases about something big coming and then it was the Mac version and it was kind of a letdown.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I'm not too hurt about it simply because of the fact that I imagine that they needed someone else to do it first, and as long as they're doing it as early as they are, which compared to every other big name vendor out there, they are. I mean, way ahead of anyone else. You don't see EA or anyone.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to probably check out a few of their games and grab some
because I play a lot of them online anyway. So it's like,
and they are a great company.
Yeah,
and I just wish they had made this move earlier, but that's the problem with being a small company. And I kind of wish that, they took that year to kind of think about stuff, and it kind of seems like they came to the same conclusion they had last time. Because last time when they announced the Mac client, they were like, well, if we ever did do Linux, we'd probably just support Ubuntu only, and we'd probably just stick with that. And then here we are a year later. They haven't really evolved that opinion.
But then did Steam? I mean, really? I mean, everybody else kind of took it and just did what they needed to with it. That's what it's going to be in the Arch repo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be in every distro. Yeah, I agree. So I'm looking forward to some of the great. I mean, some of the games I grew up on are in here. Some great old games. Awesome. So hence the name. And I'm really happy that we have yet another vendor. This will be, I think, Humble Bundle, GOG, and Steam are great. Then you have, those are big known ones. And you have Desora that's out there that's also very popular. So there's just more and more.
There's a lot of great options out there. I'm having a problem to where I've got more games than I do time and money.
Oh, yeah.
That's my problem now.
It's a total flip. Every week it seems like there's a new game. And we're going to see a whole new flood, hopefully, in a couple of years. Because at GDC, the Unreal Engine version 4 was announced. And it's a big change up from previous Unreal Engines. Now, you guys know the Unreal Engine has powered some of the most famous games out there. It's a beautiful engine. Version 4 is in development. It looks really impressive. But here's a big change up.
Oh, yeah?
For $19 a month as a developer, you can have access to everything, including the Unreal Editor in a ready-to-run form, the engine's complete C++ source code hosted on GitHub for collaborative development. They're also working on a build that they hope will support Linux and SteamOS. They say anyone can ship a commercial product using the Unreal Engine 4 by paying 5% of a gross revenue.
That seems reasonable.
You have this monthly fee, and then if you ever see sales, you pay 5% of the sales. They give an example here. If your game makes $1 million, then we make $50,000.
That seems reasonable because I've looked at a lot of other similar situations to where they want a big lump sum up front. Like maybe $1,000 or something, and it's like, but I haven't sold anything yet. You want what? So that I'm okay with that.
It makes the entry path for indie developers much more palatable, and at the same time gives them the power of the Unreal 4 engine, which has the Unreal engines have made some of the best games in our time.
And that 5% is going to be plugged back into the company. It made all this possible for you in the first place. It's a win-win.
And if you dig through the source code, which they're just putting it all out there now as part of this, and again, this isn't full open source. In fact, they specifically say that you can't tie this to anything that might have a viral open source license, unless it's a dynamically linked library.
Makes sense.
They say the first release of Unreal Engine 4 is just the beginning. In the C++ code, you can see many new initiatives underway. For example, to support Oculus VR, Linux, Valve's Steamworks and Steambox efforts, and the deployment of games to web browsers via HTML5.
Interesting.
Huge.
Yeah.
Linux support, SteamOS support, HTML5 support in the engine.
That covers all the bases, really. You know?
We are going to see a new generation of games that from the get-go will have Linux support. Now, I don't know if we're going to see this. This feels like one of these things that's a long time payoff. Like we're not going to see anything too soon. Because somebody's got to create a whole game based around this engine.
I'll give it no more than 2 years. I think that's a comfortable...
I think you might be onto it because I was watching a discussion thread with a developer who's working on a game right now, and he's working on Linux. And he said that he's not so far along that he couldn't potentially, for the benefits, he said it would set him back, but for the benefits, he could rip out his engine and put this engine in and, have a whole other class of game.
Exactly. And quite possibly a better class of game.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not all about the looks, but it helps.
It really does help.
Yeah. So speaking of the Oculus Rift, at GDC, Oculus Rift's new development kit, the DK2, was announced. Guess what, Matt? Out of the box, Linux support.
Yes.
Linux support right out of the box. Here, I'll play just a quick clip of the announcement.
Cool.
From Oculus.
We spent the last year working on building Developer Kit 2 as an update to our original development kit, something that gets a lot closer to what we want the consumer version to be, and lets developers make much better virtual reality experiences. DK2 has a variety of different improvements, largely around comfort and presence.
The sense of presence in virtual reality is something fundamentally new. You actually, for the first time, your brain says, okay, I'm comfortable in this environment. I know it's not real, but I think it is. With the second developer kit, a year of R&D, we're getting a lot closer.
DK2 has lower latency, higher frame rate, higher resolution, and low persistence, along with full 6-DoF positional tracking. All of these combined allow for much better gameplay experiences and a much more comfortable user experience.
With DK2, we now have sub-millimeter accurate position tracking, which means that the views can respond the way it actually should in all cases.
That allows you really to lean forward, lean backward in space, lean around corners. It just opens up so many gameplay opportunities.
So one of the things they've worked on is a really fast display technology that reduces motion blur and those kinds of things. Plus, they also now include a camera with it to have precise motion tracking.
Then the display goes dark until the next frame comes in. Doing this at a high enough frame rate means that your brain does not see any motion blur or any judder in the resulting image.
2 years ago, I thought all we needed was faster pixels, get to 120 hertz OLED response time, and we were done. And it was really exciting to see Valve's research, which demonstrated so vividly what a difference the low persistence display makes.
That's John Carmack, who's now working for Oculus, and he states Valve's all in on this.
That's so
and
cool.
they're talking Linux support right out of the box. So I pre-ordered it. I pre-ordered the development.
Did you really?
I figure we'll look at it right here on the Linux Action Show. It's $350.
Right.
It's like the upper limit of what I really want to spend right now. But I thought if this thing's shipping with Linux support at the get-go, Valve's all in, Steam games are going to have support, why not have some coverage of it right here on the Linux Action Show? Because I'm pretty excited about it.
That is really cool.
I saw the last generation at PAX. I think it was this year's recent PAX, and it was quite impressive. And the issues I have with it were the issues they just said they addressed in that video. And I love that Linux is going to be right at the forefront of this kind of technology.
First-class citizen. Yeah.
It's going to make SteamOS have a competitive advantage. Now, Sony has also announced something similar, but this is going to be much more open, much more wider available. And this is one of the reasons why when we have Kevin on in a little bit, I asked him about Mir and working with the Oculus Rift. Oh. So, okay. So just a couple of last bits. I wanted to, before we get completely out of the gaming stuff, and then we're going to get to the Debian story, Michael Larbel over at Franx got a great exclusive when he chatted with some of the AMD developers. Now, they did fly him out there for this chat. He made that disclosure in the article. Good on him. Yes. And but that's totally fine.
That's reasonable. Sure.
So he went out to chat with the developers over at GDC that work on the AMD stuff. And here's the bombshell. The too long did not read is they are planning to completely re-architect the way the driver works. And they want to move primarily a lot of the driver level features into user space. into the Catalyst driver in user space, and then that user space stuff connects to the open source driver that's included in the mainline kernel.
Oh.
So instead of having to patch your kernel with a proprietary Catalyst driver, the AMD driver, you could have the proprietary stuff in user space that you could just install, and then that user space stuff, without having to compile anything, would just talk to the driver that's built into the kernel already.
Oh, that's actually really compelling.
It'd be epic. So on Thursday and Friday of this week, he was at GDC 2014 where he was talking about this. He says the end result, the Catalyst driver would come down to primarily being a user space binary module without the need for existing closed source kernel driver. The fully open source Radeon Linux driver, fully open stack would remain, so you wouldn't have to have the proprietary stuff.
Right.
And there would be greater collaboration around the Radeon kernel support, given that there'd just now be one kernel driver to deal with. If the Catalyst closed source driver was isolated to user space, there wouldn't be issues like having the need to have a compiler present on your local system to install it when you're installing a new version, and there wouldn't be any incompatibilities and issues in between Linux kernel releases, so you could update your kernel. Yep. User space Catalyst code would remain closed source with no indications of that code ever being opened up. This approach would also lead to Wayland and Mir support on the Catalyst using the Radeon KMS driver as long as the Catalyst user space was then exposed via necessary EGL extensions. Now Michael warns, while this new strategy sounds really great on the surface, he says it's yet to be proven, and there's no guarantee yet by AMD developers they'll be able to pull this feat off. However, they have gotten initial code to connect from the Catalyst user space stuff to the open source KMS driver.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if I'm wrong, I will wear a... No, I'm not. Well, totally not doing that. No, I think optimistically it could be done. I think it could.
He also asked them, I'm really glad Michael asked them this question. He said, for those wondering why AMD doesn't just completely open source the Catalyst code, why don't they just open source the video driver?
Right.
The excuse we always hear in the open source community, and it's never sat well with me, because it just sounded like a catch-all answer was, well, we have a lot of IP from third parties that we have licensed and integrated into our code. I've always suspected that answer. AMD developers say it's crap. He says, while Linux users have traditionally been quick to think that AMD doesn't open source the driver over this third-party IP code that apparently it is not the primary reason. It was explained to Michael that there is a little third-party code dependencies within Catalyst codebase, and that AMD has even licensed Catalyst codebase to some undisclosed licensees in the past. Thus, Catalyst codebase has already been scrubbed to make it licensable, and these third-party reasons for not open sourcing the driver is actually a common misconception.
Weird.
One of the big reasons for not open sourcing the Catalyst driver, or the Catalyst stuff in general, let's just call it the Catalyst software, because it might not just be the driver anymore, remains concerns about AMD's quote-unquote secret sauce within their OpenGL driver code in having a competitive advantage with having some hot optimizations within the driver and other novel code that they would prefer their competitors did not see or utilize.
And it's an interesting argument okay, so here's the problem. Over the years, between back when it was just ATI before AMD even came into it, and it was just ATI versus NVIDIA, they were always one-upping each other, regardless of who had what code or who had what secret sauce or whatever.
Right.
It was never like an AMD processor versus Intel processor situation where it was just night and day. It never really was.
Yeah.
So I don't really buy that.
So why does this argument not apply to Intel? Because Intel's open sourcing their driver code, and
they're actually doing really well with it.
Yeah, and they're in each iteration. I mean, if you were to take this theory to its logical conclusion, if each iteration of your processor and your GPU, you are making incredible strides in its performance, wouldn't that technically be the biggest kind of secret sauce you'd want to keep? Because you could theoretically continue to make those strides, and you'd want to keep that secret, but yet Intel's still open sourcing everything. Right. Now, you could make the argument, hey, man, they're third dog, right? If they don't have anything to lose. They're the
in graphics, they're third dog, but
right, yeah.
But I go back to, it's like, okay, here's an alternative for you guys at AMD or whatever, is to say, all right, look, we're going to open source everything. We're going to do optimization packages for other vendors that maybe have a game or an application that they want to make sure they are absolutely optimized for, and then we bundle the two together and say, hey, look, it's optimized for blank, it's optimized for blank.
And I think the big thing to underscore here, that the meta story to this. Is because also NVIDIA and ATI recently said, hey, we're going to get together and just make OpenGL rock even more.
Right.
I think the big story here is what SteamOS has done is it has changed the conversation from how... So for NVIDIA and ATI, and Michael goes into this in his post, I think this is one of the best write-ups he's had in years, so go read it. I'll have it linked in the show notes. What Michael touches on, and I think what he's kind of hinting at here is these guys, NVIDIA and ATI, for so long, have really only made a Linux driver because they have an enterprise market,
Right.
and they want to make that. They want to make those enterprise customers happy. Sure. And there's a ton of code in the Catalyst driver, a ton of code in the NVIDIA driver that is really for the enterprise market. And what SteamOS is doing is it's changing the calculus for those companies, because even if Linux desktop itself is not hugely popular, it's mildly popular enough now that it's been nagging at them.
Yeah,
but SteamOS, right? SteamOS is that straw that's landing on the camel's back and says, oh, now consumers are using these,
Right.
and we need to make this work.
And make it easy.
And I think the end result, if ATI can pull this off, and they've always they've undersold the amount of time and money they're willing to spend on their Linux development. But if they can pull this off, if AMD can pull this off, they will have an extremely competitive Linux driver package here, because you can go all open source if you want.
That's right.
You can go proprietary if you want, only in the user space. And I think this could be a brilliant solution if they can do it. And I think the only reason they're even considering it is because of SteamOS.
I would say that's it.
You see the Unreal 4 engine, right?
Yes.
The Unreal 4 engine is coming over to Linux. Okay, we have Unity that has one-click export out to Linux. Valve and Steam, all these guys are. I just hope that once everything arrives, I hope they're not disappointed. And so I make a personal call out right here on the Monkey Suit edition of this show to Canonical and to Valve. Please don't screw this up, because if you blow this, you will blow credibility for Linux as a desktop gaming platform. It is all riding on you right now. Now, there will be more people to come to this fray, but right now it is Valve, which I have confidence in, and Canonical, which
we'll see.
I hope. I mean, right now they're keeping the desktop version true and steady, and that's probably the best thing they could be doing.
We're looking
right
at you
now.
guys. Just saying.
I hope we are in good hands, but my God, I hope somebody in your organizations is cognizant of the amount of responsibility that's currently on your shoulders, because you are about to either legitimize or delegitimize an entire platform, and everybody who could be successful on that platform if you fail or succeed. So please get it right. Please. All right.
Absolutely.
That's the Monkey Suit plea right there.
Woo!
Now, why don't we wrap up with some Debian news? So the Debian leader elections for 2014 are firing up. It's like a presidential election here.
Yeah.
It's that time again for the Debian project, election of its project leader. It's starting on March 31st. And, of course, during this, the first 2 weeks of this, the developers will vote to choose the person who will guide the project for 1 year. And so the candidates are making their platforms known to the people. Among these year's candidates is the current Debian project lead, Lucas Nussbaum, or Nussbaum. Damn, Bam, not sure. I think it's Bam. I like that.
I like Bam.
Who admits, by the way, that the workload of being the Debian project lead is huge, but in his platform, he speaks of technical and social steps to improve the project overall. From reproducible builds for a more secure archive, a renewed effort to Debian on new platforms, especially smartphones and tablets, and a more welcoming approach to prospective contributors to an easier collaboration with organizers. Now, a newcomer, that's the incumbent. Now, a newcomer, Gregory Nagy.
Okay.
He's a former release manager. Oh, I'm sorry, Neil McGovern. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Neil. So there's three. There's Gregory Nagy, which we haven't seen his platform yet, and then here's the guy, Neil McGovern. Neil's platform. Now, this is pretty interesting. Neil is the guy proposing, if he was going to become the Debian project lead for a year, that he would try to push them into adopting something like a PPA system. Here's his platform. He focuses mainly on the need to ensure that we cater to our users, and there's millions of them, from those running the latest software and unstable, to people who simply want a rock-solid core release. In his opinion, this is a quote, the size of Debian is increasing and will reach a point where we are unable to guarantee basic compatibility with other packages, or the length of time it takes becomes so exponentially longer unless something changes. To fix this, Neil proposes the implementation of PPAs, the Personal Package Archive that Ubuntu uses, for the modernization of the current build infrastructure system, as well as generally supporting various teams. PPAs and Debian, what say you, Matt?
I think if they can do it and do it in a way that's different in some fashion, that might be interesting.
What would you like to see different?
I would like to see a GUI to where I can go and actually discover these PPAs that didn't involve a browser in Google.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and otherwise it's like, what's the point? Because it's like, maybe I'm just spoiled by Arch. I don't know.
Well, and the chat room's already on this too. The chat room says, Debian needs AUR. PPAs are a tangled mess. Here's the problem.
Yeah.
So PPAs are solid when it's a really well-known project, like Chrome.
So they should have a rating system, maybe?
Well, no. I mean, it's just like PPAs themselves, like the general concept as they're implemented in Ubuntu now, they work well when it's It's something that's hosted by some repo that doesn't ever go down.
Sure.
It's a well-known company like Google.
That's being maintained on a regular
Yes,
basis.
but
Half of them.
One of the things that immediately makes a 12.04 install, an LTS release of Ubuntu, feel old to me is about 6 to 7 months after it's set up, because this machine right here is so however long that's been, because this machine's still running 12.04 LTS over here off to the side. When I run update, 4 or 5 of the repos 404 on me. And that problem just continues. Exactly. And the thing is managing PPAs is fine for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. But when you get into a dozen applications, I have let me see. I think I have 205 applications installed from the Arch user repository on my laptop.
Yeah. Well, so do I.
If I was ever to have 205 PPAs,
oh my God,
that would be an untangled mess that is impossible to use.
But see, this is also where the GUI comes into it, in that when you open up the GUI and you look at it and you're going to refresh the PPAs or whatever it is, and you instantly can see 404s and something besides a browser page, or actually see something to where it's showing a display of, hey, by the way, these PPAs are dead. Here's an alternative source, or some. I'm just kind of rethink the whole process.
269. I have 269 packages installed from the Arch user repository.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I could never ever do that with PPAs.
I probably got
and that's 100. An extreme example. I would admit that's probably 269 might be extreme, but
but there's good software. Mm-hmm.
PPAs were a great idea as the first solution. They, in my opinion, are a problem that end users, just average end users, will get tangled in way too fast.
Yes.
I hope I would like to see something that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But I would like to see more. And I know the Arch user repository isn't exactly directly translatable to the Debian package system, but
no, but it's the right concept of a central repository.
And the voting and the comments on the AUR are, at the end of the day, what really set it apart. Because I can look up a package in the AUR, and then I can look at how many votes it has. I can look at the comments, and I know I have a general idea if I'm going to be successful installing that, what I might need to worry about, or whatever.
Multiple instances of, if there is a problem, a lot of times other people have already asked the question and have the solution in the comments, or you can ask the question and get a solution. I've done that so many times I've lost count.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's been great. I'll tell you.
So then, like Crash Bandicoot's pointing out in the chat room, both the AUR and PPAs can be a major security risk, because you're trusting a lot of times the practical implementation of PPAs aren't that you go download Google Chrome and you get a PPA, or you go download Darktable and you get a PPA. The practical example is, I want random application X. I find a how-to on a blog and I copy that PPA and I put it in there, and I accept that third-party repo certificate, and I'm just trusting this person. And at least in the Arch user repository, even though it still suffers from that, there's the comments and the vote system that can relatively quickly filter that out, where with PPAs, it's totally a blind. I don't know how old that repo is. I don't know how updated that repo is. I don't know anything about it. I'm just taking it, I'm grafting it onto my package manager, and I'm hoping that as long as I have this installation, it works fine. And that's just, doesn't work like that.
This is true. Because, I mean, in the AUR, I mean, at the end of the day, if something horrible happens, someone discovers it, that's going to be in the comments probably within minutes.
Yeah.
Someone's going to be reporting this, saying, hey, I just had blankety blank happen.
And you look at things like, there's other systems out there, like the OpenSUSE build service and these other services, that this problem now has been solved a few ways.
Sure.
I don't feel like the PPA system is the best solution. I feel like it's workable for a handful of packages.
I agree.
And I think it's a little arrogant to think that Debian encompasses everything you could ever want in your repo except for just a few things. I think that's a little arrogant.
Not even close. Not even close. Not even. That's just factually bull.
However, I do got to say, I like Neil's focus on the users.
Yeah,
I think that's refreshing, especially from Debian. And I like the idea that Neil is at least thinking about these problems.
Yes.
And that he wants to. Let me be clear. If I couldn't have anything else but PPAs, I'd take them.
Yeah. No, this is true. It's better than nothing.
Like, I'm thinking, maybe down the road, I have a solid XK installation.
Right.
I want to add a PPA. Mm-hmm. That'd be really nice.
This is true.
All right, Matt. That's all the news for this week. Well, we're about to talk with Kevin Gunn, who works at Canonical as the engineering manager for the display server and Unity UI. And I think you guys all know what that means. But first, I want to thank our segment sponsor, System76, creators of machines born to run Ubuntu. And this is, if you're an Ubuntu fan or even just a Linux fan and you want to stop fighting with your hardware, that's why I run a Bonobo. And I have been a System76 customer for 7 or 8 years now. And here's the missing piece. They complete the package. It's a total end-to-end product when you buy this machine with Ubuntu, with Linux, with customer support, with hardware specifically designed to run Linux, with a good value, a support team, assembled here in the U.S. I think when you combine all of those things and the fact that they're involved with the open source community, this is probably where you want to vote with your wallet. Go check out their line of laptops. I don't think it's going to be too long until you see me here with one of their Ultra Pros. This is one of these laptops that is sort of defining state-of-the-art laptops right now. IPS 1080p display. Great battery life. Super thin. Amazing viewing angles on that screen. The new Iris 5200 Pro graphics. i7 processor. USB 3.0. It's just, when I had this machine, this is one of the best laptops I've ever used. And it's right. And what's great is it's available for Linux users over at System76, pre-installed with Linux. So go over to System76.com and get yourself something nice, won't you? Tell them the Linux Action Show sent you too. That'd do me a solid. Well, hey, Kevin, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here on our Mir anniversary episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris.
No, absolutely. So can you tell the folks what the display engineer and Unity UI guy does for Canonical? What does that role involve?
Sure. So I have the honor of managing two teams really inside of Canonical. And so one is the display server team, and they are building and developing the Mir display server that we plan to use as the default display server on our OS across all of our form factors. And the other team that I manage is the Unity UI team. So as you know, we had Unity 7 come out some years ago, and so now we're going through the process of updating that. And that UI has really developed out of our efforts on top of the mobile platform, and we're growing that into be used on the desktop as well.
Mm-hmm. I note, as we're recording this episode, it's still early days. There's nothing really that's out in general consumers' hands yet, but we're getting closer and closer. Today, as you and I are recording this on Friday, OMG Ubuntu ran a story that Mark Shuttleworth today said that the first Ubuntu tablets will ship this autumn along with some of the first phones. So we're definitely, I would say, got to be in crunch mode for you guys. Mark's quote is, they will arrive pretty much simultaneously with phones. Q3, middle of this year, we'll see both phones and tablets using Ubuntu on the market. Wow, we're really close. And I think this is what's so fascinating. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show today is because this is a great moment in time to kind of look at the state of things. How are you guys doing? Are you feeling pretty ready for this mid-autumn launch?
Right. We are. We're lined up well. And I think that has a lot to do with sort of how we approached this. And if you back off and you look at it from an ARC perspective, what we're trying to do, we hope to achieve, full convergence across all form factors, sort of, one code base to rule them all. And so we started out really on the mobile platform. So over a year ago, you probably remember seeing demonstrations of Ubuntu Touch on mobile devices, on phones, on smartphones, and then tablets trickled out shortly there later. We started with phones, and so we've actually had quite a bit of time under our belt in terms of developing both Mir and Unity 8, as well as all the other software services on the device. We've had some time with that, and so that's reached some level of maturity where at this point what we're doing is we're just doing feature adds, improvements, performance improvements, obviously, and then that will dovetail into whoever our customers are. They're going to take that and then add their value adds on top.
So
right?
I noted on voices.canonical.com on March 4th, you ran a post and said the moonshot for Mir and Unity Next, and you wrapped it and you said, our milestones effectively match this line of thought. It's a three-stage rocket for Mir and Unity Next. First target is integration of Unity Next and Mir. The second is actually creating our Ubuntu for phone with Unity Next plus Mir sometime in Q4 13. Lastly, we should hit full convergence in Q2 2014. So we're almost there. Sounds like we're not quite going to have full convergence by this quarter, but maybe next quarter. Is that about right?
Right. So that's the goal, right? And the hard part really is obviously continuing to deliver on what we've built, right? So keeping smartphone going, finishing off the features that we're doing for tablet right now for 14.04, and then putting in the effort to actually reach that convergence. So the hard part there is really, addressing the more complex window management use cases that you find on desktop, right? And that will be the part that comes next. And I should just update you a little bit, and your listeners or viewers, that when you use the term Unity Next, we're actually calling it Unity 8 now. So that was very early days.
Right, that was 2013.
Yeah. Right. We didn't know what we were going to call it at that time, but it's.
So when I refer to Unity 8, I'm referring to Unity that could be on the phone or the desktop, right?
Exactly, right. So what we have planned for 14.04, in fact, today is, so what you see on phones and on tablets today, that is Unity 8. And there is an effort underway right now for 14.04 to have a Unity 8 desktop preview session available, so that you could actually download Unity 8 and experience what it would be like on a desktop form factor.
So I have a kind of a series of techie questions for you, and I want to kind of just we'll interject, and any tangents you want to go on are totally fine.
Sure.
So we just talked about we're super early days. Now let's flip that around and let's go way out. Let's go years down the road, maybe 10 years down the road, 5 years, if we can even go that crazy. How do you feel that Mir will stand and hold up over time? We've seen now X just gets dissected with all of these designs. The people say, it's designed for a bygone era. It just doesn't make sense anymore. People, have the hindsight to look back and go, this is silly. Do you think Mir is going to be built in such a way that it's something that you guys will be able to build on for 10 years, perhaps? Is this a 5-year product? What's the life cycle of Mir? And how far out do you think it could go? Is it expandable? Can you build on it in the future?
Sure. And it is interesting, right? I think that there's a level of complexity. I'll back up a little bit and address the X comments. I guess I have some personal views on that. I mean, a lot of people do complain about it, but I look at it too and say, hey, look, it served its purpose in its community for how many years, right? And I think what it became a victim of was probably being a little too open to adopting and accepting sort of any old extension that anyone came along with. And I think that's one of the things that, we kind of have to guard against with Mir as well, right? And trying to kind of keep it pure and asking hard questions about what really goes into Mir. Is it something that should go in there? And taking that long view, like you're talking about, to say, does it serve the purpose to support different shells across multiple form factors, and those are the targets that we need to keep and try to avoid, taking on any kind of what I would call like special interest group,
right? Do you
that might come in and say,
long term, that's going to be sort of a secret sauce for Ubuntu and Mir, is that because you will have that. I don't want to necessarily direct control, but it is. It's just, you'll have that direct control over what happens to the life of that product. Does that give Canonical sort of, in a sense, a competitive advantage that, you guys might be a little more flexible? You could respond maybe a little quicker to a carrier's request to modify for a certain type of new device that comes out. Whereas, down the road, some of the other projects that are ran by a larger committee, that kind of thing could be a little more difficult to pull off. Is that sort of the secret sauce there?
Yeah, I do actually think that and believe that, and those aren't necessarily technical items, but there is a lot of reality behind that. I've been in the mobile industry for over 15 years now, in both closed source and open source environments, and there's no doubt about it, right? When you have to work with upstream owners, it's sometimes slower than if you just own the project yourself, and you can move a little bit faster. There's definitely advantage there.
I think to even kind of bring it a little closer to, instead of so it's not far out in the future, I look at hardware like the Oculus Rift. And I know that like right now is not really probably something you guys are thinking a lot about, but down the road, if the Oculus Rift was an accessory that just, let's say, exploded, when iPad level, like everybody's buying one, it's like it goes with their computer. Wouldn't, in theory, Canonical be in a position to say, okay, you know what? In the next Ubuntu release, maybe it's 1704, whatever it is at this point, we're going to enable Oculus support, and you guys could just unilaterally decide to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. And it's funny because we do actually, in our engineer speak, we use that as a test often of our thoughts on design and architecture to say, does this pass the Oculus Rift test?
Oh, really?
In terms of how we're developing. Sure. I mean, it's today there's a lot of I guess we're very used to the 2D presentation of window management, right? I mean, and all of us have been raised that way, and it's very much kind of how we've been raised. But that's not to say that there's not room for something out there that comes along where you have this new generation of kids that grow up and they experience some new device that presents that information in a different way, such as a full immersed 3D shell. It's quite easy to see that could become the new standard, right? The new normal.
So are you building today to enable the groundwork for support for devices like that in the future?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say that we're doing it in a targeted or a specific kind of way, but it's definitely something where we constantly ask ourselves, is this going to be something that is abstract enough and kind of flexible enough to fit into a framework other than just the traditional 2D windowing system?
Right. That's interesting. And now I kind of wanted to bring us back from the future a little bit more, and I wanted to talk about early on when we all kind of boot up our maybe it's the preview version of Unity 8 or maybe it's Unity 9 down the road or something like that. How long do you see us relying on Xmir? And at the end of that sort of compatibility layer, if you will, are we going to need to have developers target Mir specifically, or are they just going to need to know GTK or Qt? How's that going to work for like down the road my Linux desktop apps like Thunderbird and Firefox that I just love?
Sure. Right. So that's sort of the hidden question of, hey, what about legacy X apps, right?
Yeah.
So today we have, you brought up Xmir, which is really where we have Mir as the system compositor, but X is still the traditional session compositor. So whatever windowing session you're running, you're actually running that through X. And then Mir is strictly it's almost really just a copy of the frame buffer out, right? It was kind of a proof of concept that we did in 13.10. Going forward, we're not really investing in that anymore, but what we are going to invest in is the concept of having what we've kind of termed in our engineering vernacular on the team as rootless X, right? And that is the ability to have a like a standalone X spawn to support rendering of that legacy X app into a basically what would be a Qt window in the end, right? Or a native Mir window in the end.
Okay.
So yeah, there are plans for that, and we are actually actively working on that. That has been not a primary focus on our team, so it's a little hard for me to say exactly when that'll hit. But
right, because you're focused on mobile right now, but it's something that's down the road.
Exactly. When we turn our sights and kind of turn the rudder on the ship and really kind of aim it at getting the desktop story down, that will become a burning topic.
Before we move too far away from the desktop, I had the number one question sent into our show is all about. Everybody saw the recent pivot from Upstart to Systemd that's going to be implemented over time. And I think the number one thing people thought is, at some point, will Canonical make a similar pivot with Mir to Wayland, or maybe implementation of the Wayland protocol in the Mir server down the road, just to make the desktop version of the device a little simpler, a little more straightforward for the rest of the ecosystem. Do you see that as a possibility, or is Mir too connected to the future success of the platform as a whole?
It's funny. I'm not really. I'll say this. I don't think that's anything anyone's ever really discussed. In terms of what we have in terms of capability of Mir, I mean, it is serving our purposes even on the desktop today. What we've done, like with the Unity 8 desktop preview and what we've seen so far, it is serving our purposes. And obviously, there's having two answers or two solutions for kind of the same problem, even though you're on different form factors, isn't an efficient answer inside of a company, right? When you have limited resources and you're trying to deliver,
especially when you're selling to vendors
in
too.
Multiple industries as well, right?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that makes sense. So,
I would just say this too, Chris, is that there's a fair amount of cross-pollination that happens too. So, it's the old, hey, if I solve a problem on the mobile space, I have now solved that problem on the desktop space.
I think the other big problem that people see is potentially proprietary drivers? Because I know there's stories. The story, like say with the Intel driver, is that push comes to shove, you guys can grab that, you can apply the patches you need. How does it work with say the NVIDIA Blob? I know there's been some vague discussions about having conversations with GPU vendors. We don't have to get any specific vendors, but I'm just curious, do they have to make code changes? Is there a compatibility layer they'll be able to speak to and everybody's copacetic, or how's that going to look?
So, yeah, without getting into details, I would just say this, is that if you sort of back off and you look at kind of how the world is moving in terms of graphics drivers, both, and you kind of have to look at it both from the mobile space and the desktop space, right? Because they deal in both worlds as well. There's very much a drive towards industry standard APIs. I mean, consider for a moment that we did Mir without access to any driver code, right? We took binaries using very well-defined interfaces, GLES, EGL, some of the Android APIs, and just used them directly, and they just worked. And sure, there's always the corner case that you hit, but 99% of the time, it just works. Yeah, I think that is the same trend that you will see happen on the desktop as well. There will be a conformance to APIs. In the event that there's some kind of interface that maybe is retained in terms of proprietary nature, we would work with those partners to basically have a platform that.
But it kind of sounds like for early days, maybe the most success is going to be on desktops will be guys that are using Intel GPUs, right?
For sure, yeah, no doubt. I mean, and we do that today.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and those Intel GPUs, I've been impressed with like the new Iris graphics. It's kind of unbelievable what you can do with an Intel GPU now, and that's just going to keep getting better. I know, and I know there's going to be solutions down the road for it. So that's kind of a future problem. And I have one more future problem to ask because I'm an old IT support guy, and I use the heck out of remote desktop management like VNC or Splashtop or any of those kind of products allow me to, or even X1140, to be honest. So how does that work? I know that's, again, you guys aren't focused on the desktop at this point, but is there anything in Mir that could enable support for that type of technology down the road?
Absolutely. So we do have we do know that is going to be something that we're going to address. As a matter of fact, I think you'll notice that we just added screencasting is a feature that we just added to Mir. And I think the one big problem to solve that maybe has been is problem in X is the security issue, right? And so we're trying to do this in a way where the shell has some kind of authentication capability to it, so that not just any old app can start stealing screenshots or know where the mouse pointer may be.
Sure.
But to have some sort of kind of trusted element to that, and you can read up on our wikis about our security approaches and that kind of thing. So we're working with those teams to make sure that whatever we come up with is a security
well designed,
okayed approach.
I like that. That's definitely a good thing. Well, Kevin, I'm really kind of, I think in some ways, the best is yet to come for Ubuntu. It's going through this phase where there's a lot of hubbub around a lot of the things that are going on, but at the same time, I can see where you guys are going, and if you get there, it's going to be pretty exciting. What is your ultimate end goal? Is it you have a super powerful, is it the year 2016 and you have a crazy awesome powerful smartphone and you take it from the office and you bring it home, you get home and you plug it in and everything resumes back up? What is your end vision that you see for all of this that you'd love to, like, would be the big goal to accomplish?
Yeah, that's just it. I think to have that kind of seamless user experience, right, between all the devices, right? You use your cell phone, you're familiar with it. It feels the same way. The LAF, right, the look and feel of it is the same when you take it home and you put it on a bigger screen, whether that be a laptop, whether that be a TV. No matter what it is, it feels right, and you know it, and it's easily navigated, right? So it just becomes kind of second nature to operate through the shell, right? That's kind of the goal.
Right. I look forward to kind of watching how that develops. And it's kind of getting pretty close. It won't be too long until I'll be able to get my hands on one of these devices. Are you carrying a device right now that has Mir and all of those goodies on it? Do you have one?
So I actually have 3 devices on my desk right now.
Can you show them, or are they secret?
They well, no, they're not secret, but I mean, and I think you've probably seen them all. But they're mostly the Nexus series devices.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
is that the 10 there?
That's the 10.
Yeah.
And then I've got the 7 over here and the N4. So yeah.
Yeah, you don't get the new BenQ. They should get you the new fancy phone they're working on.
Well, it's some things we shouldn't discuss.
I mean, I guess I know Mark gets one, but I feel like you should get one too. It's just kind of got to test it out. It's take one for the team. Well, Kevin, is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up today?
No. I appreciate you reaching out and an opportunity to chat, and really enjoyed it.
All right, well, keep up the great work, and I can't wait to get my hands on an Ubuntu-powered device with the Mir display server. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But hey, Matt, before we get out of here, I thought we'd talk a little about Mir. I wanted to thank KP in the chat room. Keith, he's supplied the beer last week, if you saw our unboxing of that. This is a Dead Pony Club California Pale Ale. It's very hoppy, so I'll be drinking that during the feedback segment. So I thought maybe one way, and I noticed we have a couple of folks in the chat room who might have the answer to this right now, but there was a blog post this morning before we recorded this episode from a Canonical employee, and he argues on his blog. His name is Richard or Bob. Okay. He argues that display servers are the component of the display stack that seems to hog a lot of the limelight, but he would argue it's actually the least important component, at least to an end user. In a modern display stack, there are 5 components: your hardware, your driver, your display server, and shell. And he puts display server and shell in the same line, which I think is noteworthy. Toolkit, platform, and API, and applications. He goes on to say that if you read the internet, you would think the most important part of this new world is the display server. But actually, it's just a detail that doesn't matter that much. Applications access a display server via a toolkit. All the successful toolkits support multiple backends because there's more than one OS out there today. The hardware and drivers becoming more open and more generic. Video cards used to vary and have very specialized functionality, but now they're used to provide only a fixed function, or they used to only provide a fixed function, but now they're more generic. They're basically massively parallel processor cards with OpenCL and OpenGL as a means of passing shaders and buffers. He says the result is the display server doesn't matter that much to applications because we have a pretty good toolkits that already hide all this information from us. And his argument is what matters now? He says it matters that we have open source drivers. He says the shell matters a lot more. We have multiple form factors now. The shell expresses what an application could do, and different shells are likely to vary in what they will allow. So he's kind of saying, and now he's a Canonical employee, so he obviously is coming from a certain perspective. But he's saying, hey, quit talking about the display server. Talk about the applications. Talk about the toolkit. Talk about the form factor. I think I agree. And I think in this last year, what we have seen is that the display server will eventually become an implementation detail, and the only people who really care are us.
This is true. You may be onto something.
In fact, we got a couple of emails this week because they knew this was coming up, and a lot of people in our email said, I don't really care what the display server is. I care because I care about the technology.
Yeah, I do in a passive way. I mean, because I care, because if you don't care, it could end up biting you in the butt down the road.
Yeah.
I care from that perspective.
Speaking of Linux Fest Northwest, or what I think that was on the pre-show. I wanted to give a shout out to Albert Westra, who manages some of our Google Plus communities. He's put together the Linux After Party event. He is looking for anybody who wants to commission some artwork. He's a great artist. And he says, why not commission me to create your own Sonic fan character? Yes. And that would make a great social network profile or whatever. And he's using the funds to help him get to Linux Fest Northwest. So I have a link to his post on G+. You ordered 2, huh?
I ordered 2. One for myself, one for my nephew, actually. I just need to figure out which character my nephew wants to be. Probably Sonic.
Nice. Good on you.
Yeah, and we're going to go ahead and do that.
Good on you, Matt. So Meredith wrote into the show. It says, Linux Action Show got a funny story for you. I wanted to surprise my partner by getting them the new LAS hoodie. Oh. My partner wanted to surprise me by getting me the new LAS hoodie.
That's awesome.
Our mutual surprise plans were ruined in the best possible way when both hoodies arrived on the same story.
Oh, my God.
# true story.
That's hilarious.
So, we're getting a lot of pictures from folks who've gotten their new LAS 300 shirt. If you go over to Jupiter Broadcast or Instagram.com/Jupiter Broadcasting, you'll see people rocking their LAS hoodies. There's the monkey suits on there too. There you go. If you want to see the monkey suit, go check out the.
That's great.
And look at this. Look at people are rocking their shirts. They've got their coins. Matt, if you. By the way, viewer out there
that was awesome.
took a picture with Richard Stallman.
I saw that, and and Ange and I were wondering if the whole canoe thing came up.
Too funny. So there's Richard Stallman posing with the Linux Action Show 300 shirt. Here's a 3D printed version of our rocket using a 3D printer.
Cool.
Now this guy's hardcore because he was watching me on Friday do the interview with Kevin and rocking his swag. Look at that.
Gosh.
He's got the JB hoodie and the last 300 hoodie.
Hardcore.
And he's got a t-shirt on. Or he's got the t-shirt right there too. And he's trying out Solid X.
Oh, check out that picture off to the second to the left. Yeah, right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
I know, it's hardcore, right?
That is just killer.
And look how good that print looks too.
The lighting was just perfect for that. That's awesome.
So if you have a selfie, I guess you could call it. Let's just call it what it is. If you have a selfie of you rocking your last 300 hoodie, tag Angela Fisher on G+, or at Angers on Twitter, or Angela at JupiterBroadcasting.com with the email address. We got kids in here. So many great pictures. Awesome. You see, the thing is, guys, there's Jed, which we'll be seeing at Linux Fest Northwest. The thing is, Matt and I sit here for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we look out and you see us, but we never get to see you.
Right.
And so getting to see you kind of makes it real.
It's
these
true,
are real people out there that watch our show. There's goatslive.com rocking our with his goats. Love that.
Awesome.
It's so great. So many good ones.
Yeah.
Instagram.com/Jupiter Broadcasting if you want to see them all for yourself. There's some, and we're adding more as people send them in. Nice. It's really cool. So if you haven't gotten your last 300 swag yet, I think you will soon. I haven't gotten my shirts yet.
Oh.
So it just depends on your location. I think they're shipping them from Texas.
Yeah.
Sounds
about right.
One last bit of feedback before we go. It's technically not an email, but we've been wondering, should we drop the season format and just call it what it is? This is episode 305 of the Linux Action Show instead of season 31, episode 5.
Tough one.
We submitted this to our chat room, and look at this. Drop it. Just go with the production number is ahead by 76% right now. However, if you love the legacy, if the season thing helps, then go vote for the season. Because I propose to you, dear listener, if we drop the season thing, how would a new person coming along know to sift through the back catalog?
Boy, that could be confusing for people.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I mean, I hate the season thing. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
Full disclosure, I don't like it.
I don't. Not only do I not like it, I can't remember it.
It's legacy. It's something we came up with when we used to take breaks every 10 episodes. It no longer applies. The chat room, the live audience, wants us to get rid of it. But you can go vote. We'll have a link in the show notes, and you can cast your vote. Should we drop the seasons?
Yeah.
Or should we keep the seasons and embrace the legacy?
Good question.
Anyways, so Matt, as we wrap up the Monkey Suit Spectacular, did you have any thoughts, any retrospectives?
Boy, I've got 2 articles coming up that you can check out. But other than that, as far as the Monkey Suits thing coming up, no, not really. Other than that, it's harder to breathe in here than you would think. It's interesting because I'm basically looking out the nostrils with a little mesh here.
Nice.
And,
Boy, pro, Matt, pro. Wow. Speaking of pro, I got a pro tip for you. Okay. We'll have a link in the show notes to Matt's Datamation articles. 2, you say? 2 coming?
2 articles coming this week, so they're just in pending status.
Okay, so check out the link in the show notes to find that. And you know what? I'll toss a link to the Instagram feed in my stash area as well. Don't forget Linux Unplugged on Tuesdays.
Absolutely.
If you didn't catch our interview with the Solid XK developers, go watch last week's episode of Linux Unplugged and join us on Tuesday for that. We have an open lug. It's a mumble room, and you can join us and hang out with us. If there's not a lug in your area, become part of our virtual lug with Linux Unplugged. It's a great companion to this show. Don't forget, you can join us live and hang out in our chat room. Join us over at jblive.tv, 10 a.m. Pacific, which is 1 p.m. Eastern, and I think 6 p.m. UTC. I don't know about daylight savings.
Sounds right.
Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get it in your local time. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week. Running through my head right now is like, kids say the darndest things, and I'm just picturing like somebody. So, what does your daddy do, little boy?
He dresses in all yellow and hangs out.
Well, yeah, he hangs out with a monkey, and he wears a yellow suit with a yellow hat.
And there's cameras involved.
Right. Well, good. I brought some bananas. You look good, man. You look good. Oh my god. Oh my god. Look at this. Nice. Real nice. Oh yeah, looking good, Matt. That's pretty good.
Always important to shake it for the host.
Hey, banana boy!
We have a banana.
Come here.
Let's come see the banana.
Is your last name pronounced Gunn? Or Gunn? Or?
It is Gunn. It is Gunn.
Man, you are so lucky. If this developer thing doesn't work out, You could totally get in Hollywood, and if you didn't even want to bother with Hollywood, you could rock the podcast scene with a name like DJ Gunn.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
My son's name is Jack. How about that?
That is
awesome, or what?
good on you, sir. Good on you. Did that man a favor. All right.
He's got the most awesome costume.
Now watch out. I don't want Matt to eat you.
That's such a cool costume. See?
Now, Dylan, look at the camera and you say hi. Say hi.
Hi, everybody.
What do I do
I don't know,
with
man.
my mouse buttons? Well, if you'll notice on the front of the key caps, we have keys that are labeled.
I trust him because he wears a bow tie.
So this is for people who didn't want to switch to a mouse?
I think the idea is that you didn't...
Look, because on the keycaps they have control, click.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, I don't remember any of this, but was that a candy or something?
Windows software runs better and faster, from mice to monitors.
Let's go for more. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Oh, I made it. Now this guy's gonna poop out some triangles. Oh, but I can... Oh, I did a barrel roll. How did I do that? I guess I'm just going fast enough. Whoa, buddy. Here we go, region 2. Now it changes up a little bit, y'all. It changes up. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I shouldn't have done that either. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah, let's go for more speed. Sure, why not? What could go wrong? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
Okay. Enough of this silliness. Get serious.